The building is symbolic for something more,
Correct.
something greater.
Correct. But the church collectively, you could be in Africa working, but you attend First Presbyterian Church downtown Thibodeau and still praying for that person in the church that has cancer, or that person we met
You're
that
still a member.
Right.
Right.
That person that doesn't believe in God, but came to church several times seeking answers.
Right.
Collectively, inside the church and outside the church, or the four walls, I should say, we're praying. Now, if I meet somebody that doesn't attend my four walls and I tell them about the situation, they too should join in with us and pray for that person. So that's what I was getting at when I wrote this question.
I see. Gotcha. Yeah. Interesting. Well, it does seem like if there is any evidence and credibility to support the idea that prayer works at all, then it would be more powerful in numbers. That's a question unto itself. There have been some studies done in psychology, parapsychology in particular, that support the idea. There are small correlations, but correlations nonetheless, that do support the idea that prayer works, either from one person to another or from a group to another. The studies have not been done to a large degree because of some of the atheistic attitudes that run the scientific community, right? So prayer is disregarded. It's not even really, it's like astrology. It's not given a chance to be tested in most cases because most people in the scientific community are already atheist and already reject the idea on principle alone without really being willing to question it and test it, which is what scientists should do. They should test everything. That's their job.
Permission to diverge a little bit.
Of course.
What does the word science mean?
Well, I gave a little bit of that at the beginning. It's a method of inquiry. It's not a belief system, as some of these like more atheistic types would like to believe, even if they won't admit it. But their actions show otherwise, if that makes sense. Science is a method of inquiry designed to collect data and to test that data, to come up with hypotheses and predictions about future events in the material empirical reality that we live in order to learn more about the patterns of the material universe so that we can not only further our understanding about that for the sake of itself, but ultimately, I think, to help people and to help drive our human race forward in a positive manner. I think that's a definition of science that maybe should be adopted by more scientists themselves, and maybe should be understood by people who are anti-science as well.
Yeah.
I think science should be meant to serve people and serve higher goods.
Yeah, because the word in and of itself is the study of knowledge.
Yeah.
Vaguely,
Right.
collecting data and studying it and coming up with hypothesis and everything. That's you're gathering knowledge, and you.
Of course, you can't have real empirical knowledge without formulating hypotheses and then testing them and finding out what's most true about empirical reality. But my view is that empirical reality, the physical world, is only one realm in which we live.
Right.
It's just one aspect of, especially human life.
Yeah. And believe it or not, I actually like science.
Yeah. You should. I mean, it's.
Yeah. I mean, God wouldn't have given it to us if
extremely useful.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. Now,
but it's very powerful though. Science is very powerful, and it's very persuasive, and on a spiritual level, it can be very deep if it is serving the higher goods. But if it's not, then it can be dangerous.
Okay.
Like anything.
So looking at it from, I'm going to be the guy that's going to now play atheist.
Okay.
And I'm probably not going to be good at this, but I'm going to give it a shot. Well, science says XYZ 50 years ago.
Sure.
Okay. But new scientists came along, tested that hypothesis, and then it changes.
Yep.
Why doesn't Christianity change?
Are you asking me expecting me to take the Christian perspective?
Yeah, we're going to flip it. Well,
Okay,
you're not
we'll
atheist.
That's okay. I can ask the atheistic questions too, though. So why hasn't religion changed? Religion has changed to some minor degree in its reformations, in its councils, in its identity within the cultural context. Religion does change to a degree, but the concept of God doesn't change. The concept of free will and what we're meant to do as good citizens, as good moral beings, that doesn't change or shouldn't change, I don't think. Culture can affect that because culture can force certain expectations upon people as far as what they should do, how they should be, how they should act, how they should interact with other people. And so that can alter the religious perspective to some degree. That can influence it in a not so good way, mostly, I think.
But there's no proof that God exists.
Well, what do you mean by God? And that might be a discussion for another
All right.
episode.
See,
Because I tend to not like to personify the concept of God, but that's kind of my preference. And I think that's one of the things that drives me away from practicing spirituality within a religious context, is because I think that there's too much of an emphasis placed on personifying the concept of God. And I haven't really wrapped my mind around why that's absolutely necessary in almost every religious context. You know, even in Islam, of the Abrahamic religions, I think Islam has the least human form based idea of God, but it's still incomplete in my view. I think personifying it, making God a human figure, and clearly the Bible says that we were made in his likeness and image, but I don't think that means in form, in physical form. I think it means such in spiritual form. Like, we're all spiritual beings.
Mind, body,
and
soul.
God is in us. We're in God. We're all part of one organism, which is the universe. I think all religions to some degree do agree with that. But if you know, personifying the idea of God is one way of taking a concept that's so grand, that's so beyond us, although we're part of it, because we can be beyond ourselves too, on a deep psychological level, you know. It's just to make the idea of God more simple so that we can fathom it, you know. We offer things up to God. To me, that means we show gratitude for having things that maybe we don't feel like we deserve, you know.
Good point.
Because often that's what gratitude is. It's something. It's a virtue that you practice when you have something that you didn't earn by merit alone. You can be proud of something. That's the difference between pride and gratitude. You're proud of something that you worked hard to get and you achieved it. And so you can be proud of that accomplishment. But showing gratitude, it's like showing gratitude for life, for being alive. You have to do that. Whether you're religious or not, you have to some degree, because you didn't earn it. You did nothing by your own will. It all starts from somewhere, right?
Whew. I'll say amen to that. All right. So what I want to do now is kind of go back into the question and answer format totally. We were doing. And this is your personal opinion, Britton. Okay. No pressure.
Are you asking my opinion now?
So after this episode, you're going to probably read that 2 people went to jail for fighting.
No.
Is humanity headed in the right or wrong direction from a philosophical standpoint?
From a philosophical standpoint? I mean, do you want me to kind of bring spiritual or religious thinking into this? Or I don't know. It's hard. It's such a general and vague question, you know?
Well, no.
I just want to know, I guess, what you mean.
You have to load a shotgun every now and again, too. Come on, man.
Yeah, totally.
So what I'm getting at is, all right, so we're talking about prayer.
Sure.
And we're taking a break from prayer, which it's still part of it, and we're just looking at the moral hierarchy of the world at this point.
I see.
Do you think we're heading in the right direction or wrong direction?
I think we're in a phase right now. We have it so good in the West. By the West, I mean Western civilization, U.S., Canada, Great Britain, most of Eastern Europe, Australia. We have it so good that we're getting bored to some degree. We're coming up with reasons to act like we are justifiably miserable. And so you're seeing some demoralization of society. You're seeing demoralization of culture to a large degree with all this discussion about rights and not responsibilities. You know, people in certain political groups arguing in favor of, you know, human rights, taking a virtuous, self-righteous stance on certain topics and social issues for the sake of human rights. Now, but it comes often at the expense of responsibility. So let's take exactly.
I'm gonna say it. Black Lives Matter.
Right. Yeah, I mean that is one of the movements that misses the point, I think. If you take one aspect of Black lives, welfare, largely in this country, welfare has a purpose. I think it has a righteous purpose at its core, but it's misinterpreted and it's misused, and it's overvoted for. It's overemphasized as a system, and it's abused to a very large degree.
I'm glad you said that, because I'm going to point back to the Jewish culture.
Okay.
When they would give more every third year to take care of their own. So, yes.
Which is a form of welfare.
Exactly.
Right.
And I'm going off on another tantrum. Bear with me.
Please do.
Welfare, food stamps, any government assist program, in my personal opinion, ought to be used to help.
Sure.
So if I were president, I would probably not be liked and probably impeached the first day. Because the way I look at the welfare, and I grew up on it. I'm not even going to sit here and say I didn't. I grew up on welfare.
And did it help you?
It did help me.
Yes.
But behind that help was, most people would say, a strong black woman saying, you don't want to live like this.
Right.
Okay. So what I get from welfare is, for example, if I'm on welfare, I'm going to be on that program for a year.
Right.
And in that year, I'm out working.
You're working.
Trying to save money, trying to get my finances together, so when that year ends, I can, you can
transition
properly and sufficiently support myself without any help.
Right. Well, the goal is to eventually be able to support yourself without help. And welfare is a way of getting you started. You know, giving you what you need for your basic needs. And it gives you a bit of a foundation, but it's not sustainable in the long run if you want some of the finer things in life. If you want to be successful, you have to take responsibility,
right,
and make it out. That's one thing I did really like about your grandmother, man. She really pushed you, and you took the message to heart. And I think
she beat me.
So I think you don't want to live like this is such a better message and such a better motivator than, say, how some black parents give their kids the talk. You're black, you're oppressed, you're never going to make it out of the hood if things with the government and at the higher levels don't change, and it's not your fault, but it's what you have to live with. And they basically shame their kids into believing that it's everyone else's fault, and regardless of how hard you work, you're still going to be seen as someone who doesn't deserve your success or anything of the sort. And I think that's just a poisonous way to raise a kid. Like, it's just a poisonous attitude to have when there is every chance in the world, if you take it upon yourself to get out of that situation, you can do it. You are 100% proof of that.
Yeah, and look, my sister, my older sister Andrea, she's another example.
Sure.
Some of us take
it's in the blood.
It is.
It kind of is. It might
be.
Yeah.
And my sister with her two girls does not teach them to live under government oppression, if you will.
Right.
You know,